It's time for Push2Plat, your weekly trophy podcast with Mindi and CJ.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 37 of Push2Plat on a beautiful, lazy, warm Sunday afternoon, or a late night in America. How are you today, Mindi?
Lazy's a good word. I've been pretty tired today. It's kind of, the weather's dropping, so you don't want to go outside, so you stay in a warm little huddle, and it just makes you sleepy.
That sounds perfect. And listeners, do we have a guest for you today? In fact, a wonderful returning guest, longtime friend of the show. And listeners, I warn you, he has told us today he is full of energy. We may not get a word in either way, but I look forward to it either way. So, without further ado, Sir ResidentDarrell.
I am fantastic.
I thought for a second there, actually, you might have forgotten your usual trick.
Oh, no. I actually had to put my controller down to crack a can.
So, listeners, just to give you a little look behind the curtain of this podcast, if you like, and in full professional disclosure, Mindi has decided today to take on Darrell's challenge and play a game while she's podcasting. I wonder how this is going to go.
I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I am a little tired.
So there you go, listeners. What could possibly go wrong today? I don't know. But look, let's take a moment. I'd like to take a moment, if it's okay with you, listeners, before we jump in today. And I'd just like to thank any new listeners we have. Of course, the returning listeners as well, but any new listeners. We've noticed a bit of a growth in the numbers again, a bit of an upswell, an uptick, forward momentum. We're charting, if you say, on a small scale, of course, listeners. And we do really appreciate it. It is possible that these numbers are only increasing because we just dumped a whole lot of content in the last week or two with our Halloween episodes. But look, maybe we are growing. And if we are, I'd like to thank you, listeners, for spreading the word. And if you're not spreading the word, you selfish bastards, then why don't you start? Help us out. Okay, that's the end of the promo. Now, I thought we could start today with a bit of a question, if you like. Now, this is something that I've noticed a little bit. I know it. I know everybody gets it. It sort of ebbs and flows a bit, but I've noticed a bit in my own profile just recently, and this is the random PSN messenger. Now, Mindi and Darrell, do either of you suffer from this? The random messenger, if you like, the bot, some people would call it, the Russian sex doll, perhaps the Ukrainian money launderer. I don't know, but does this happen to either of you? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, actually, I get lots of messages for people offering scandalous photos and sexy time for money. As a matter of fact, it doesn't actually stop on the PSN. Every now and again, I'll get a message on SoundCloud. It's like, hey, I want you to see my body. And I'm just like, I don't get it. No, thanks.
There is, I'm going to ask you about this because you're familiar with SoundCloud, but there is this strange thing of people that offer to sort of promote you or something, don't they? They're obviously, it's some sort of dodginess. But
every track.
Yeah.
They're bots. I mean, it's funny because like, speaking of SoundCloud, I actually uploaded a bunch of old EPs from my band. And it's like, as soon as I uploaded them, we're getting likes and we're getting messages, and they're like, hey, I want to promote your track and we'll get you shows in such and such town. I'm like, these EPs are from 2007. We are not even a band anymore. Like, it's like, maybe if I was just getting started, I might fall for that one. But I'm like, oh, it's like,
well, it doesn't hurt that these people offering to do it have very attractive, feminine, pictures as well, does it? So, these bots at least are very good looking.
I challenge whoever programs these bots to really put some just fat uggos in the pictures. You know what I'm saying? Like, really go out of your way to get some trailer park trash in there and just like See how that one goes. I'd like to see the analytics on that one.
It would be more believable, perhaps, I think. Yes.
It's like this is a real person right here. That's legit a real person.
This looks like the sort of person that would listen to me. Yes, this is legit. So, Mindi, has this happened to you, or do you keep a clean profile? Do you manage to avoid this?
It happens sometimes. I've gotten probably 5 or 6 of them in total. I just delete them right away. I recognize them pretty. I tend to get more of the whole like the money stuff than the sexy women stuff. Like click here and you can get a $50 PSN card for $20,
As a female gamer, have you ever thought about doing it yourself? Sending some of these messages out?
No. Honestly, I have a theory that they might be bots tailored by your gaming profile.
Oh.
Like they see certain games, they're like, okay, that's probably a dude. Let's send a naked lady.
That's a pretty safe assumption, I suppose.
Well, it's crazy. On Facebook, like I used to get a bunch of messages on Facebook, and then when I changed my status to married, it cut all that stuff out. Now I don't know if that, I'm saying like some of that stuff changed. If it's a settings thing, if it's if these bots scan for, I'm saying, like males that are a certain age, look, maybe single looking to mingle in my bio was probably attracting some of these bots. I don't know.
It's interesting to hear that your Facebook slowed down, because I understand your Tinder profile is still red hot.
I'm so old and out of it. I wouldn't even know how to Tinder. It's so funny because I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about TikTok. I guess that's like a new thing.
It's basically what has replaced Vine.
Oh, okay. Well, I wish they would have said that, because I'm like, oh God, because what I've always done is like every time a social profile comes out, I would go and just like get the ResidentDarrell name, just so that no jabroni would go and take my name and steal my identity. And this time I'm like, you know what? I'm done. That's it. I've gone as far as I'm willing to go.
This is an alarming question, but I'm sure now that I think about it, I'm sure it exists. Is there like a Tinder or Grinder, if you're that way inclined, listeners, for the geriatric person, the older gentleman or lady? Do you think there is?
Codger.
Yes, Codger.
Why do you have to say that? Now I gotta look it up.
I know. I want to know as well. I'm just thinking about the pictures you might see. That would really bring a whole new level to raunchiness, wouldn't it?
Oh man. 60 plus and no teeth, looking for a hot Friday night.
Oh man, I just Googled like old people Tinder, and it took me to a article that said the 5 best senior dating sites, and the first one was OkCupid. I'm like, oh, that's a blast from the past.
Good.
Down here in the South, we get Christian Mingle is like a really popular one.
Oh yeah.
Like you ride around the town, and it's like, oh, I got every so many blocks, there's like a little sign, like a phone number, Christian Mingles.
Oh, there's also one called Lumen, and Plenty of Fish. I think that's another Christian one, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Like it's like Plenty of Fish in the Sea, but like I think it's got a Christian bend.
But yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
And eHarmony. I remember those commercials. That old dude who's like, "We've tracked down 16 scientifically proven attraction points," and like. That dude was creepy. I'm like, I don't want this like 70-year-old telling me how to find love. I really don't.
I tell you what, by the time you're 70, those points would be a lot lower, wouldn't they? The gravitational forces affect you.
It's like,
I see what
but look, anyway,
right.
Anyway, listeners, we're really deviating here from the original topic. But if we can help in your love life as well, why should we not attempt to? The spam love life
as a Patreon.
As a Patreon service, that's right. So
Push2Plat dating service.
So the reason I want to bring this up too is that I've noticed, like, to be honest with you, listeners, I don't get many on my alt accounts get a lot of action. So I very rarely log into them anyway, but there's always a couple of messages. So I sort of feel bad for those bots, because there's no one there to reply to them. So, I would advise them to maybe rejig the formula, to non-alt accounts perhaps. But I've been getting...
Why should you feel bad for them? That's literally what happens if you try to reply to the bots. There's nothing there to reply to.
Well, maybe it replies back to you. I don't know.
You're flipping the dynamic.
Have you ever read any of the responses people post on the internet to those things? Because they are freaking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Now, this other point. Now, this is not really messages, but this is a phenomena that I don't remember happening until about a year ago. So I think it's obviously it's been going on, but I think it's growing in popularity. The random liker. Do you? And I read about this on a Discord from someone else. So it's obviously happening to different people, but they sort of said everybody has someone on their friends list. And, friends list, whether you know them or not. It's sort of you pick up people here, there, and everywhere, as you know, listeners. But do you have a random liker on your profile, Mindi? Is there someone that just likes to like things that you do?
Not with any sort of consistency. I have some friends who are more
Hmm.
likely to like things than others, but I wouldn't. There's not one person that I'd point at and be like they just put a like on whatever I do.
Hmm. And Darrell?
I do. Yes, actually, my 9-year-old son's girlfriend, she likes the random trophies that I get, and she has no clue what they are. But what happens is, there's certain games that like my son, like the VR stuff or whatever. If it's a digital download, they'll play the VR games under my profile, and I guess every now and again they use my profile to chat. So for whatever reason, she'll just start liking my trophies. I guess she's hoping they're his. I don't know.
Well, they're going to claim them one day, I see. I like it. Yeah, well, it's an interesting phenomena. And so, listeners, I have a random liker as well, which I quite enjoy. We converse, but I always feel the pressure of if he likes something, then I need to like something back. So it becomes a like-a-thon, I suppose, of who can like the most. Now, unfortunately, he is not what you would call a spam gamer, listeners. So there are he plays a lot, but there are good periods where he doesn't earn a trophy. So I often need to go back 7 days to find something, and I've already liked it. So it's difficult. So if you are going to be a random liker, I suggest that you do earn some trophies as well so that we can reciprocate the favor. Because I definitely, I know Mindi wouldn't feel this pressure, but I definitely feel this pressure. And now my last point on this labored question, listeners, is now I don't know if this is unique to me. I was once told that I find a lot of interesting people on PSN, and I don't think it was a good thing. So I have acquired a random party chatter that every time I come on, I get a request to join the party chat, followed up by another request, and then another request about 3 minutes later, and then a direct message, join the chat. So have you, Mindi or Darrell, ever had the next step, almost the stalkerish step of the random party inviter?
No. There's one or two people on my list where I think what they do is just I think there's probably like an invite all option, and I usually get invited to the same 2 or 3 people's parties just because I think they're just inviting their entire friends list, but I never join them. But I
Hmm.
definitely would not be getting the level that you claim to be getting here.
Well, it's just one person. Darrell, do you have the random?
Not anymore. Back when the Xbox 360 was the flavor of the week, it would be as soon as you log on, someone's inviting you to a party. Now, I don't know. I think I just have a different type of friends, now, or lack thereof now, because I don't have. If I get invited to a party, it's surely by mistake.
Mm, mm. Well, that's how I feel too. I don't talk on the system really at all. So it interests me. But I think listeners, I think what I've learned is that perhaps having an open door policy to PSN friends is probably not the best strategy. And look, it's just, it is what it is. But look, why not? Why not just the other thing? Now, this is a topic for another time. These clubs, communities, getting invites into these, it's very strange. But anyway, and posting things. But look, fascinating diversion from what we're really here for, listeners, which is games. Now, you're probably saying, well, this has been a massive week. This has been PlayStation's, I don't know, Diamond Week, if you want, in the rough. The Kojima, the Death Stranding, when are they going to talk about it? Everybody's talked about it. Well, you'll have to wait and see if we're going to talk about it at all, listeners, because we're not going to talk about it now. Well, not yet, anyway. But we are going to talk about something, Darrell. hopefully. Yeah. Now, what have you been playing? What would you like to share with our listeners?
Am I starting?
I would love you to start.
Okay. I played and completed the Call of Duty Modern Warfare campaign.
Ooh.
I know you guys had mentioned on a recent episode, I can't remember who was on, but I think, CJ, maybe you said you thought about checking it out. I'm not sure. Maybe it was the week it was on the drop.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might have slid that one in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we read out Easty platinumed it.
Got you. And I am here to report that it is really good. I really enjoyed it. I've played and completed almost every Call of Duty. I feel like I've beaten them all on one system or another, but this one's really good. It is a little more. It's definitely story focused. So what they did this time, opposed to like I said, the last entry, they didn't have a campaign at all. They had the battle royale or whatever. Well, on this one, it's almost all story. Like the trophies are story centric or campaign centric. There's no multiplayer trophies. There's like a DLC line for some spec ops or special ops stuff that you can do cooperatively. But it is the campaign is it's the focus in this game, and it is really good. I didn't get the platinum yet. I'm gonna go back and get it sooner rather than later. But just with this season flooding with a bunch of games, I figured I would try really hard to play several of them. And then I know you had reached out to me about us doing maybe some long form stuff on a few other games. But yeah, so the Call of Duty game, one of the things I really loved about it is it's more focused on a really close quarter stuff. So when they use the term modern warfare, it's not necessarily a callback to their old title, Modern Warfare. It's more so on what war looks like today. War is a little messy. There's a lot more emphasis on random civilians getting caught in the crossfire, terrorists doing mass bombings and things like that. There's some darker and grittier story sections where you have to play as kids caught in the middle of a war. They did a really, really good job of giving you a variety of missions, some gravity to the missions, and then even just one of my favorite ones was where you have to clear out this like townhouse, almost like an apartment building, and it's like you kill the lights, you got your night vision on, and it's 4 or 5 guys going up a stairwell, and they kind of have to look over each other's shoulder, and it's very easy to accidentally shoot your partner, and then randomly as you're busting through, some of these apartment buildings, there's like women and children in the rooms, and like the first person that moves is the one that you want to shoot first, but that's not always necessarily the one you need to kill. And there's certain missions where killing a civilian will automatically make you restart, and there's some of them where you can accidentally gun down a civilian, and one of your teammates will scream at you, but like you have to keep moving. But it's really good. It's a fantastic game. There's some really, really neat things that they do with the story and with the different missions. I really enjoyed it, and the trophy list is very manageable. Aside from having to actually beat the game on the harder difficulties, which in Call of Duty is with their monster closets and things, they can be a bit frustrating. I've got at least 1, maybe 2 Call of Duty Platinums. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it, even if you're not necessarily a Call of Duty fan. But if you like first-person shooters and a decent story, I recommend that one. Pretty good.
So, because I have played the campaign as well, so I'm going to ask you some questions here about what you thought about it. Like, I think the gunplay, as you said, and all that stuff, that's really good. It was fantastic. The story is very good or whatever. I felt... and as you said, the last year's one didn't have a campaign. Perhaps I felt this time and I know that previously the ones have not been great. The campaigns been a bit of a hit and miss, but this one, as you said, definitely is. I felt in times this one, it was very realistic, very, very full on, if you like. It almost felt like, to me, and I'm sure this is not, maybe for people that play a lot of these games, they're still... They don't have any association with what they're really doing, or they don't put association to it. But you reference the children and the women, and there's points in the game where when I played through the first time, I chose not to shoot the woman because you shouldn't shoot the woman, and then she turns around and grabs a gun and shoots you straight away. Yep. And it very I know this is reality. This is what would this happens, but I found that very jarring. It really added to the game, but I don't remember these sort of things being in previous games like this. It's a lot more realism, I thought. The children's section, as you said, moving through the gas, and that section, I suppose it's a minor spoiler here, listeners, but there's a stealth section to that section at the start, isn't there, where you're hiding from the Russian soldier. And I don't know, did you find that there was a lot more realism in this campaign?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Call of Duty's time to kill is so fast. And it really felt like they turned this one down as far as movement speed and just the speed of the Michael Bay gameplay, they turned it down just a notch, just a hair, just enough to make you think, and like you said, I didn't want to say it, but like, yeah, like there's certain rooms you go in and then there's and so many of these terrorists, these Al Qaeda guys or whatever, Al Qaeda for, if you want to say, be a little simpler with it, but like so many of these guys would go in a room and they'd hide behind a woman or a child. And it was just like crazy. And then what they do is they scurry and then they start shooting at you. And then, like you said, there's times where you don't shoot the woman in the room and then she shoots at you. Or even there were times where like you'd have like wounded soldiers, in these hospital areas. And, most everybody in there seems like they're dying. And then randomly, which, I mean, I almost kind of expected it at that point, from so many twists and turns from the enemy's decisions, there'd be a random guy just sit up on a hospital bed with an AK-47 and start firing at you. So it's, they did I've never been in war, you know what I'm saying? Like I've never served in the military. I've got really close friends that did. And just some of the stories I've heard and some of the things that I've seen in movies that, that they're like, oh, this is inspired heavily by what it's really like, blah, blah, blah. It really does seem like this Call of Duty tried to match a level of realism out there while still trying to gamify, the fact that it's a game. It was good. I really, the night vision missions and the stealth missions were my favorite.
There's another point, and I know Mindi won't mind here, but Mindi, I'm interested in your views because I'm going to link it to another game. I know you haven't played this, so listeners, if you don't want any spoilers, I'd advise maybe just jumping ahead three or so minutes, just at this point, just so you're safe. But Mindi, what I'm alluding to here, and Darrell will know, is there's a section in the game where you're playing as the guy or whatever, and they bring the family of the terrorist in, the wife and child. And you have a choice whether you want to play that scene or not. You can skip the scene and the game continues, or you can play that scene. And in effect, their bags are put over their heads or whatever else. And they're not really tortured per se, but they're, you're given a gun, they're held at gunpoint to try and get their father, the terrorist, to talk. I'm sure you remember this section, Darrell. So this sort of gameplay, it links back to a little bit for me GTA 5 with Trevor, where there was a torture scene, I think, if you remember, where you could choose.
It's so funny. I was just thinking when you were explaining it, that's what I was thinking of with the car battery and stuff, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. So that was actual torture. Now, just as I said, listeners, now's the time to jump ahead. But so, Darrell, I'm not sure. I imagine you probably played this scene. You probably didn't choose to skip it.
Oddly enough, I didn't think it was. I really didn't think it was gonna give me the option. Like whenever the guy whenever Price looks over at you and says, "Hey, are you doing this or not?" I chose no, just out of like the natural. I'm a good guy. I do good guy things. This is crossing the line. And then I missed the whole scene altogether. And I was like,
yes,
wow, it was cool. And I checked the trophies. I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't like lock myself out of a trophy for doing that. It really does give you the option to not see, when they brought that woman and that child in there, it gives you the option to not see the torture. And it was neat. I kind of wish I would have seen it, but I was pretty okay with the fact that it allowed me to just opt out of a torture scene as if I was that soldier who took a moral line, in the sand and was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
That is good. So I want to follow it a little further though, because I mean, I did both. So I went through on the veteran playthrough and, or the first playthrough I did on easy. I did play the scene. The second I didn't, to see what would happen. So when you do play the scene, there's this, and this is, Mindi, I'm interested in your opinion here too. There's this really pivotal moment where, he's putting pressure on the guy, you're holding the gun or whatever. He never tells you to fire the gun at the child or whatever else. And you're standing there and it's getting heated. There's yelling going on. He's threatening the guy, terrorist, trying to get the information. And you're never once told to shoot the gun. And I didn't want to do it, but I did. And I shot the gun at the kid. And, I hope you'll jump ahead, listeners, if you don't care. There are no bullets in the gun. The guy's given you, but you don't know that. And he turns to you and goes, whoa, well, that was your decision to do that. And I thought that was real. This is the friendly soldier. And I thought, well, like, wow, that's really saying something, especially for a Call of Duty game. And I just wonder though, because I've read some comments where people have found that scene very confronting because of that. But do you think, and I know it's a very big generalization considering that Call of Duty is mainly a multiplayer shooter game, Do you think something like that is going to carry weight, or do you think a lot of people will just go, whatever, and not associate with that at all?
I'm sure the vast majority of Call of Duty players, A, they were not going to play the campaign just because the majority of people who buy it don't play the campaign. But B, I would imagine the ones that do play it are looking for a story. But I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't play that. And now like hearing you say it, that means that there's another layer to this scene that, you know what I'm saying? Like you could do it and not pull the trigger, or you could not do it, which is what I did. And so
Yes.
I don't know, man. I would hope that that it would I don't know that it will, but I would really hope that people who actually take the time to play it will walk away with this going, huh? Because again, giving me the option not to do it made me sit back and go, there's a lot of thought into this one.
Yes. It's a very interesting thing. After that scene, I stopped and I thought, wow, Call of Duty has emotional depth. Like it sort of shocked me because it does play so differently to what I was expecting. And then I mean, as you said, there's still sections later on, but that it's a pivotal moment. One of the great things, listeners, if you have played the game, obviously, and you didn't miss that, and you want to do it, you can do chapter select, and you can start right there, basically. At that point, my understanding is so. You know, if you want to experiment with it and see for yourself, that is a possibility. I see that the trophies you have are much the same as the trophies I have as well to do. So. Good luck to both
Yeah,
of
I'm
us.
like
there.
right about 50. I'm about 50% through or 51% through or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to sidetrack you there. What should we go on to next?
I've been dabbling with a bunch of random stuff. I'm getting ready to do another like a PG spoilers or a deep dive, some kind of on Dead Space. So I've been playing through Dead Space, which doesn't show up in my PSN profiles because the room that I'm playing in has my PlayStation 3 and there's no internet in that room. Like the Wi-Fi doesn't connect. So that one's been, you know, kind of done incognito. Fun game. I've beat it on the 360. I'm going back through it on PlayStation 3. I really enjoyed it. But the game I've spent probably the most time with that I probably want to talk about more than anything else on my profile, Call of Duty aside, would be Dying Light, which I know I mentioned it to you guys before we were live on the show. But Dying Light's a first-person open world parkour zombie apocalypse game. It is really, really fun to play. Like it is one of the most fun games I've played in years. I played through the game to its completion on the Xbox One, and I played it in multiplayer the entire way through with my brother and his wife. And playing through it with people, laughing and cutting up and talking, not paying any attention to the story at all. It's two games. It's two completely different games, one in multiplayer and by yourself. Playing it in multiplayer, the physics alone are so insanely fun. And the ragdoll, when you kill a zombie, when you kick them off a building, when you put an arrow through their leg as they're crawling over a fence and they just roll down a hill, like it is a lot of fun. It's got a really good upgrade system. And as you are upgrading your character, like the upgrades matter, your speed, your agility, your melee moves, like the different types of combat that you're allowed to experiment with. One of which being this huge drop kick, and there are all kinds of. It's a post-apocalyptic. It's a town. I don't think the entire world is infected with this virus at this point, but there's like metal barricades everywhere, and there's spikes, and there's just so much stuff in the environment, and you can just run and full on drop kick a zombie. And you can drop kick them off a bridge. You can drop kick them through a window, off a building, and you can power up this drop kick. So when you drop kick them, their heads explode. And playing it with people, it just essentially just run, jump off a building, and drop kick a zombie, and then we laugh, you know. And it's a very melee focused game. I don't know if you ever played any of like the Dead Island games, but it's Dead Island if it was good. And it just, I don't know. And like I was saying before, it's got like some Far Cry elements to it. Like it's serious when it needs to be serious, and it's absurd it kind of in the middle to really lighten the tone. But I don't feel like those two things are at odds with each other. Like I think that like it is a very competent first person parkour, you know what I'm saying, action game, but it is also a really fun open world game that gives, like, you know how you play open world game and it's like, okay, I got to go get this thing, I gave this person, and it's just fetch quests for the sake of fetch quests. With Dying Light, your fetch quests, they do things to lighten the mood, you know, and they're fun. Whether it be the writing, whether it be the actual characters that you interact with, you know, or, you know, again, I said this off the air too, but like the fetch quests are essentially just a reason to go scavenge, so you can build new weapons, you can, you know, get new upgrades and things like that, and it all hinges on doing missions and surviving at night. Now you can sleep in your safe houses, so you don't have to run around and do much at night. But at night, all of the zombies, all the infected, are more powerful. And then you have these new mutated creatures called volatiles that are.
What a horrible night to have a curse. Okay, I'm done.
There you go.
Got my Castlevania referencing.
See.
Because in Castlevania, in Simon's Quest, which is like a very early Metroidvania,
She said it.
there's a day-night cycle, and when it's a horrible night to have a curse, you know, when it's nighttime, all of the enemies are stronger.
Well, that's exactly what happens in this one, and you get double the XP, double the points. It's fun to be out at night, but it is super intense, and the sound design is one of the strongest points of the game. And I would even go as far to say the soundtrack itself is one of the best soundtracks. And I remember hearing it as I played through the game before, but again, playing with people and laughing and cutting up and doing absurd stunts and crazy things while you're playing the game, it really does, you know, hinder those things. They don't really get to set in. So as I'm going through the game on PlayStation now, with full intentions on going for the platinum, the soundtrack is so good. Like, I really hate the fact that I didn't give it some props when we talked music a few months back on the show, because this soundtrack is so fun, and it's got 80s zombie movie horror, and it's also got some heavy rock riffs for when things get a little more intense, and yeah, it's really good. I really think this is a fantastic game, one of the best games I've played in years, and it really says something when you play something a second time and it's essentially different. It's a different game. It's still as fun to play. By myself, it's a little more tense, you know. There's rather than have two other characters run around doing crazy stuff, jumping off buildings and cutting zombies in half in slow motion. Now when I'm out at night, I'm alone and I can die, and it doesn't matter how leveled up you are, how many weapons you have, how many med kits you have. Like, once these creatures get on you, you're dead. And it's you know, it's a lot of fun. It's really good. I highly recommend it. And this one has, in my opinion, stood the test of time, coming out earlier in the generation and yet still being a game that I continue to go back to.
It's interesting. I really do enjoy games that offer that risk reward, if you like, the day night cycle. So it's been some time since I played it, but as you said, going out at night, you know, it is more risky as well, isn't it? The rewards are greater, as you said, but the risks are higher. So you can make a decision how much to take. What I was going to ask, because I don't remember, but you can refresh my memory, is if you die, like if you get caught out at night and don't make it back, how does that system work? Do you just respawn, or do you lose things, or what's the mechanic there?
You do respawn at a safe house, but you do lose all of the skill points that you accumulated since your last, I'd say, save point or day night cycle. And the more that you do, you know, the more those points, you know what I'm saying, add up, especially at nighttime. So if you die at night, whereas if you die during the day, you might lose 300 or 400, you know, survivor points. If you died at night, it could be 1,000. You know, it could be an entire level on your skill tree. It's, you know, it's worth it to brave the night, but when you die, you're dead, and it kind of sucks. And you also lose your resources too. So like if you're fighting tooth and nail to stay alive, you know, and you burn through your med kits, and then you die, you lost your points, and you're also out of med kits. So then you have to go and scavenge and try to find resources to make your med kits so that you can try to go back out at night again. So it's very interesting. And the game has changed so much. Like, they are still supporting this game. they still do events. Like they did a Left 4 Dead event just a few weeks ago where they had the characters and the weapons and the enemies from Left 4 Dead 2. There's little call outs to Mario and Plants vs Zombies and random things like that in the game. There's there's like a point where you get like drugged and you're hallucinating, and you have like a pipe system you have to go through that's very similar to like a Mario style level. There's also like a little pinball-esque machine, but it's like a Plants vs Zombies setup or whatever. It's just it's really good. But if you just kind of mainline the story, you'll never experience any of the absurd stuff. And that's what's so great about it. If you mainline the game, don't do the side quests, don't go exploring more than you have to, you're going to play a Far Cry style game, you know? And it's just, it takes itself serious. And then as you kind of go through the different layers of what it offers, then that's where really, in my opinion, where the charm is at.
That's excellent. Yeah. And I know there is a sequel, listeners, Dying Light 2. Is that next year? I know that is, it's just around the corner. So something, and as Darrell says, that game, I know at launch, that game was very glitchy and buggy in certain situations. I think there were doors, if you went in, would just crash the game out completely. But my understanding that is well and truly all fixed. And there is a ton of DLC in that game as well. So plenty to keep you busy. That's good. Is there any other games you wanted to throw out today?
No, those are the main ones. I mean, I guess when we talk spam, I can talk about some of the spam.
I can see some there. Yes, we'll save them for the spam. Mindi, what have you been up to this week?
Really nothing. I've played one game this week. No, well, that's a lie. I played a little bit of Oberdin because I'm writing a walkthrough, but that's not like officially on my profile yet. So I'll save that for when I've actually, platinumed it, and then I'll talk about it. But mostly I've just been playing Lego Movie 2.
That's quite appropriate considering we talked about Lego last week.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think I said in the episode, I had put in, like, the day before we recorded the podcast, I had put in a request at my local library to check out the game, and it took a couple days to get to the branch closest to me, but I picked it up and I've got it free for 2 weeks.
So tell us, Lego Movie 2, what do you think so far?
Yeah, I don't know. They switched it up, which is in and of itself is not bad. But my understanding is that the way this game plays is like what Lego Worlds is.
Oh.
And so I feel like because Lego Movie has an actual story, this might not have been the best move. That maybe they should have stuck with the, go to and play through various scenes from the movie instead of just this open world kind of nonsense. Then every once in a while you get something that maybe relates to the movie. I don't hate it. I play these parts and I'm like, oh, I remember this part from the movie. I kind of wish I was doing this. But at the same time, it's an easier trophy list. So this will take a lot less time, I think.
Well, that's cool.
Okay. Is it basically just a collectathon?
Not even that, really, because although there's a trophy for 100% in the game, all that really means is you have to get all 400 something purple bricks. You get a ton of purple bricks just for playing the game. The rest of them are just out and open on the various hub worlds, which are actually pretty small. There's I think 12 different worlds you visit, which are all pretty small. And that's it. That counts as 100% in the game. You don't have to get all of the. You don't have to unlock all the characters. You don't have to unlock all the items. You don't have to none of that. It's literally just these purple bricks. And they're called masterpieces. And half of the trophies on the list are just for getting all of the masterpiece blocks anyway.
It doesn't sound like you're sold.
It's not bad that they tried something different. I kind of wish it was not this. I wish it was more like, if they were trying something different, I wish they'd tried something more like that Marvel Vita game where it was just little challenge levels or something.
I was just about to ask you if you had a preference,
and
I wanted to segue into that one. That's awesome that you brought it up because, like, I really enjoyed. I actually platinumed that one, the Marvel one on the Vita, the superheroes. I like the chapters. You know what I'm saying? Just like you play through the level, you beat it, you go back through it a second time, and you play it with the other characters that you have to unlock everything. I thought that was a really good way to do it. I'm not a huge fan of the open world aspects of the Lego games. I've played almost all of them personally, And Lego Movie, the first one, was in my opinion, one of the slowest, hardest ones to play through.
You must not have played some of the later Marvel games then. They got seriously bloated.
Yeah, I've got Lego Avengers, and I've kind of like dabbled with it on the Vita. And then I've got Lego Superheroes 2, but Tricky from Trophy Horse said that one had like a lot of bugs, and the trophy list was really, really jacked. Like it was one of the worst trophy lists. So I haven't really messed with that one too much.
See, now, Mindy, you played all these games. So you can correct my timeline here, but it's the same studio. They almost have two styles of game running at the same time, because the Lego Incredibles, that's in the same year, isn't it? Or roughly. And that's a level-based system, isn't it? That's not an open world game.
Well, the open world is kind of a misnomer there. What most of them have is like a big hub world, and then you go to various points in the hub world, and that that spawns the levels that you play through. And the majority of the games have some sort of at least the console games have some sort of variation of that. Whether it's like the Star Wars games tend to have different planets that you go to, and each of the planets have their own little smaller hub world, or you have something like Lego City Undercover, which is just a massive hub world with little. And the Marvel games tended to be like that, where it was a massive hub world. Some of the later ones you had like planets you went to, but it was still massive centralized hub world.
I think Ninjago is a little more level based as well.
Yes, I quite enjoyed that one. The one on the Vita in particular was fantastic. But
yeah, I've dabbled with that one, and I have the PS4 version as well. Typically when I play those on my kids' profile. Like we'll play together.
Mm-hmm.
I've got enough unfinished trash on my profile. Every now and again, I try to spread the wealth.
I like
Lego games are not trash.
No, not at all. But I take Darrell's point.
My completion on these Lego games is what's trash.
Yes, yeah. They're very easy to get that first trophy, aren't they? But to get them all, that takes some serious time commitment in a lot of these games.
Yeah, they're like, we'll show those trophy nerds. We'll give them 2 or 3 to start, and then make you play for 20 hours to get the rest of them.
Yeah. I have not seen this Lego Movie 2, the movie, Mindy. Is the same song in it, or did they get a new song?
They did a oh gosh, I only saw it once when it was in theaters. I think what they did was they did like a new recording of the first movie song.
Oh, fantastic.
For the credits, but then they also did the villain had her own little song that was catchy in its own right.
Okay.
Like midway through the movie.
Yeah. Which one had Batman? Batman has a song in this one, and he has a song in the Lego Batman movie too. One of them, he's like, he's a Ben Affleck level hot and Oprah Winfrey level rich.
I can't remember. The one in the Lego movie was pretty great because he's like, I'm serious. And it's this kind of goth rock song. He's like, dead parents, but I have money. Doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh, my 4-year-old sings that song, and it is so funny. I'm super rich. No parents. It's really
he's eyeing you off in the corner.
Really
yeah. I like it. That's good, Mindy. Do you want to throw out any more on that, or should we move on?
I might throw out a bit when I finished it. I haven't finished it yet.
That sounds good. Okay, we will move on, listeners. So, what can I drop on you? I'm going to just drop really briefly because I haven't got many trophies in it, but I've spent a few hours in it, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and I think it probably interests both of you two to some degree. Is the Cat Quest 2? So this is it plays exactly the same as the first one, I suppose. If you're familiar with it, a top-down dungeon crawler, I suppose. It's very cute. You can play it local co-op if you want, but just switching between characters solo play if you like, and it's lovely. I don't know. Have either of you played the first Cat Quest?
I have not.
No, it's on my short list.
I think I have it. I think I own it. I think I might have bought it for my daughter. I've never played it.
It's just one of those games that's really good to like almost just play while you're listening to a podcast or just listening to music or something, because all the it's not spoken, so all the text comes up, you can read it or whatever as you're playing, and there's not a lot anyway, and it's just simple hack and slash mechanics or whatever else. So it's just a fun distraction game, but it is really beautiful. So look, if you haven't played the first one, and to be honest with you, I never finished the first one, so I don't think it matters at all jumping into this one. And from what I can tell, the systems are a bit more developed in this one. So if you don't really care, I would probably just start with this one. So I throw that out there. Now let's turn our attention to one of the two big games to come out. Well, I think one of the two big games to come out.
Actually, before you do that, can I do a short game that you've done several times?
Please.
Actually, tell us about football game.
Yeah, okay, so football game is the Ratter spam of this week. If you like, and look, it's short. I think it's under an hour. That's for sure. I'm just thinking back to the game. There are a couple of missable trophies, I suppose. So you would need a guide if you wanted to clean them up. It's very easy. I mean, it's a lot less involved than My Big Sister or what was the other one? The Just Ignore Them. That was the other one, wasn't it? So once you've played it with a guide once, you'll easily remember if you choose to stack it, either on the Vita or on other region stores. Look, it is fine. I don't. What is he? He's a drinking loser. High school or college, I think high school student, who is still pining over his girlfriend or whatever. They're actually, I don't want to go into the ending because it would spoil it, but it is a somewhat sinister ending. I think if I got the ending correct, I think it is sinister. Otherwise it's
didn't it say it was like Lynchian and inspired by 80s horror, so that would be appropriate.
Yes, yeah, it's one of those endings where you're not sure if it doesn't show you what happened I can't elaborate more, otherwise I'd give it away, but one thing might have happened, or maybe it didn't happen and he's just stuck in the past, sort of thing. So without going into it, is it worth reading? I think it is. I thought it was fine. I mean, as I said, it's only going to take you an hour anyway, and there's not a lot of text or whatever else. The puzzle mechanics are incredibly simple or whatever. So I think it is. One of the funniest things is early on in the game, like literally at the very start or whatever, you come out of your bedroom and the mother's there washing up or something, and you make her a cup of tea for the trophies, obviously. Make her a cup of tea or whatever, and then she goes to sit down at the table to take a rest, and then she's there for that whole first section of the game, which is probably only like 5 or 6 minutes or whatever, but you're going back and forward, and she's sort of hunched over, and the way it's pixelated, she just looks like this, I don't know, like hag or something at the table, which is perhaps the scariest thing in the whole game. I'm not sure, but it's just unfortunate the way that it's been pixelated there or whatever. I found it amusing, but yeah, look, it's fine. The people that stack it will enjoy it because it's quick, and the people that don't will probably find merit, but I don't think it's one of the better ones compared to Big Sister. Maybe slightly better than Just Ignore Them for me personally, but subjective of course, listeners. So with that being said, let's go over to Need for Speed Heat just very quickly. I think I'm the only person here on the panel today that has any interest in this game, so I won't bore you two. I'll just talk through it.
Well, you don't only have interest, you've got proper stakes in it, don't you?
How so?
That bet of yours, right?
Well, yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry. You're right. I do. And unfortunately, I had a feeling it was going to come in at 79. It needed to come in at 80 or higher, listeners. I believe it's come in at 74 at this point on Metacritic. So we had a little, for those of you who missed last week, I had a little bet with the Scottish Nub, another name for noob, apparently. Thank you, sir, for educating me. And his game, Death Stranding, had to come between 90 and 100, which is never going to happen, obviously. Definitely not at this point. I think it's sitting at a very respectable 84 with most of the reviews in. So he will definitely be playing Final Fantasy 12, but the reviews for some reason were late for Need for Speed, a day late after release even. So, but they have come out. It's sitting at a 74. IGN, they did receive a good check this time, I see. They gave it an 8 out of 10. So at least somebody gave it an 80%. So, but that's good, look, they're a very interesting review. He's fantastic. The Tristan, who writes Australian, I believe, writes the reviews for the Need for Speed, most of the racing games for IGN. So look, this game, I know there has not been a lot of joy for many people in the Need for Speed from Need for Speed 2015 with the awful Mindi FMV cutscenes. I don't know if you ever saw any of these, but
so bad.
Did you play it, Darrell? Yes.
Oh yeah, I love Need for Speed.
Do you? I didn't realize. Sorry.
No, you're good. Nah, I didn't finish that one because it was so freaking cringy.
Yes, dreadful. And then, of course, they go to the year after, the Payback. I don't know if you played that. The open world, they got rid of their FMV cutscenes, back to animation.
I think as far as the PS4 releases, there's Need for Speed, the FMV one, and then there's like isn't there like a Rivals or something like that? Like Need for Speed Rivals?
I think that was earlier. Yes, yeah.
Maybe. I've got two Need for
Mm.
Speed games on PS4. One of which one of them I haven't even opened, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, the previous year's iteration was the Need for Speed Payback, and that had a lot of controversy because of the microtransactions, EA, and surprise mechanics. And now, whatever your opinion is, ironically, they were surprise mechanics because if you played it, listeners, you would know you actually you don't get more gambling than this. You'd go into the garage, and it was a slot machine, and you would actually spin the wheel to see what parts you would get. So, and you had to. The problem, the issue with that was not getting the part, it was getting the color, because if you could get the right colors, obviously they give you a buff or a bonus. So people did not like that system because you could use in-game money, you could buy spins as well, but you earned spins and you took in-game money. But I suppose it added a level of RNG. In fact, later on down the track they patched that, and I think you automatically started at level 15 with the machine. There was something like this. So if you platted it early on, you did have to spend a fair bit of time with that machine. But later on, they basically almost took it out. So that's gone now. That there are no microtransactions at this stage. There is some sort of weird $7, $7 buff, if you like, or boost to give you the deluxe edition, but that gives you cars and a 5%, I think, hit on your rep and money, which is irrelevant. 5%. The game is very liberal in both of those things, but for the cars or whatever, potentially interesting. But look, that aside, I really enjoyed Payback, so you have to take what I say for this game with a grain of salt. These are games that I love to play, and in racing genre as well, and racing genre with a story. So the story is cringeworthy, I think, to a degree, but it's Darrell, it's fun cringe. It's not like the FMV, like what the that too much.
So bad.
This is Street Rat, Street Rat Racer cringe, which I like, in the hood sort of thing. Okay. And I like it. And what's cool is that they've opened it up. So it's not just, there is, a main story, but there are also these driving stories with different characters that you can follow through as well that have various missions and cutscenes. So you're getting a bit of diversity. I like that they don't bring all the events straight away. I earned the drift last night, and that was probably after about 4 hours or 5 hours of playing different things. So drift events. So they sort of slowly unwind things as you do the story. It also works on a day-night cycle, much better than the games in the past have. In that during the day cycle, if you choose to race during the day, you can earn money, but you can't earn rep. If you race at night, you can earn some money at a much lower rate, but you can earn rep. And so you've got sort of, if you like, two systems at play. You need the money to upgrade your car or buy cars, but then you need the rep to unlock the parts, to unlock the story events, and to unlock better cars as well. So you've got to do a mix of both. During the day, the cops don't involve you. You're fine. But at night, you get a heat factor. So you'll do a race. It'll probably trigger a cop. You can take the risk and do another race, and they will come into the race with you. So they'll be taking you out and whatever. If they do catch you, the penalty, it really depends on how much money you have. So if you didn't have much money before you started that event, it's probably worth taking a big risk. But if you had a lot of money, they do take a good percentage, and not just the money that you've earned on that night, the total money in your bankroll. So it's a very good risk reward of whether you want to keep racing or whether you want to seamlessly fast travel into the garage and start the next day, if you like. So I think that mechanic is good. And I think for people that didn't like the previous one, that may alleviate some of their problems. I think, having said that, if you've played Forza, these games, as you know, with Payback, were moving so close to Forza Horizon, it's not funny. In fact, the legal team may be very interested in this game as well, I feel. They've ripped off everything like they did last time with the activities, but in a good way. They've also created a bit of a festival atmosphere with the sideboards and the flags and things, so it does have a Forza-ish feel. Still doesn't look as good as Forza, Sony Pro. Yeah, good on you. But that is what it is. One of the detractions, and I think it's the final step. Maybe the lawyers told them they couldn't go this far, but they don't have a combo meter, if you like. So when you're driving, you can't build up points or rep or money through doing drifts and things outside of an event, which obviously in Forza is a huge part of the game. But with that exception, I think this game is as close as you're going to get to a Forza experience on the console. And if you're only if you're PlayStation locked, this is a good option. So as I said, treat it with a grain of salt. If you don't like racing games, you're not going to like it. But it is arcadey. It's it has 3 difficulty levels, so it can be very easy. You can play offline if you want. If you're going to go for trophies, you'll have to play a little bit online. The money is a lot better online, so it is perhaps worth playing online. But you don't have to for the experience. So look, I think I've sold that game. I've sold that game quite well. Well, I hope so. I picked it up. Let's save the other game till later, perhaps. Perhaps we'll never talk about it. And shall we go into some new releases for this week?
Well, I actually see you picked up Black Sad. Did you play much of that?
I did. Now the funny thing is I played like an hour of it and I thought it was fine, but then I was told that the game is broken. And apparently this is true. They're going to patch it. Apparently the rumor was it released too early or something. I'm not, or earlier than they expected. So it will be fixed or whatever. And looking through, I can see like a good portion of the trophy list is at 0%. So maybe that is part of the glitching or whatever else. But the amount that I played ran fine, but maybe I hadn't run into that yet. And it's good. Yeah, Mindi, this is a game that you would like, I'm sure. Of it. It plays, I mean, it's very much like a QTE style game with a little bit of walking, like all the dialogue choices.
This is the one with the noir cat detective, right?
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, look, it's I don't know if it is a lower budget or lower release price game, if you like. And I mean, and again, I don't know if the patching will change this, but the central characters are animated well, but the backgrounds are very rough or whatever, but that's also within the style, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely going to go back to it. I think I'll just wait till that fixes itself. Is that what happens? They just fix themselves, I'm told. But yeah, is there anything else, Mindi, or have I passed judgment?
What about Jumanji?
Well, that is an interesting one. So this is I blame Zador, friend of the show, for this. Sir, this is your fault. So look, I was interested in this game. I will preface this, listeners, with a warning. Do not buy this game yet because the online mode is not in the game for some reason. It's coming in November. So I don't know.
It's required for the platinum?
Well, definitely required for the platinum, but I think also required to have fun because I think it would be a lot more fun playing with other people in this game than playing by yourself. The game only consists of 4 levels, so that's a consideration as well. So without the online, it's not. I would definitely wait. Like it's definitely coming at some point, but it's just not there yet. So until that point, and yes,
I mean, so were like Blues and Bullets episodes 2 and 3.
Well, that's true. I mean,
I don't believe it's going to come unless it actually is there.
Did that ever come out?
Nope, never going to happen.
Wow.
Well, don't tell Zador that. He'd be devastated to think that he can't get this plat. I'm sure. That's.
No, I think literally, I think the studio doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh yes, for the Blues and Bullets, yeah. But
yeah.
I think there's some faith. This game is funny because it released in the US on the 15th, but I see it doesn't release in a lot of Europe. It doesn't release in Australia to December. So perhaps it was never planned that the online would come at the same time as the American release. I'm not sure, but
are you telling me that everywhere but the States they required you to wait until the entire game was there? I'm shocked.
Oh, we could go somewhere with that, couldn't we? But the States are work in progress. I like it. So, but yeah, look, it's fine. But yeah, I can't endorse that game until the online components come. But what is there is fun. Yeah, is that? I think that's everything, Mindi. I think you've scoured the list and come up strong.
I have.
Good, excellent. We passed muster for this week, listeners.
Yep.
The Platinum Vultures can relax, can retire. So why don't we start with you, Darrell? Partly because I've had enough of my own voice. I feel at this point I really went off on a tail on Need for Speed, didn't I, listeners? Oh well, new releases, Darrell. You have a couple. Do you want to throw one out to start us off?
Yeah, so as I was looking through the drop, this Fractured Minds stuck out to me, and here is the phrase that sold me. It says Fractured Minds is an immersive artistic short game. Done. Sold. It says explores
Do you know how
anxiety.
short this?
Go ahead.
Do you know how short this game is?
It doesn't say, but it just
It can be done in under 10 minutes.
really.
Yes, really. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if it actually markets itself as a short game, you're talking
They
30
got
minutes.
me. I'll buy it day one. It says it explores mental health issues and things like that. So I'm like, hey, I'll try it. And then when it says it's a short game in the description, like that's what I need. More short games.
This is a perfect game for you, though. So, what happened, listeners, for those of you that know, this game actually released like 6 or 7 months ago, and it released early. It was never supposed to release, and Sony picked up on it a day or two after release. So it was taken off the store. So if you owned it, you would still have it and the option to download it, but it was never intended to release at that time, even though it was completed.
Oh wait,
So-
I think I have played this.
It's quite good.
This is the one with the. Yes, I have played this. I did it in 20 minutes.
Yes, yeah, it's good.
It's the one with the. Oh, I do remember this.
Yeah.
Awesome. See, that sounds like a winner to me.
You're gonna like it, Darrell, because it's a little bit off the wall. Control. I mean, it's not. I was thinking of Control actually, but it's it's not a shooter game, but it's got those weird environments. I think you'll like it. Yeah.
Very cool. I kind of want to put a plug in real quick. I know it's completely out of the order of the show, but it just made me think of it. I started playing this game called Past Cure. It's absurd. It's very weird.
I have that on disc. Is it still? Did the patch still glitch it?
I mean, it's working fine for me. I got it on disc as well.
It's one of those games where if you play it unpatched, there's a couple of there's a trophy that's glitched, but if you patch it, it glitches some of the other trophies. But the one that was glitched unpatched will unlock. So it's one of those things where you need to unlock the stuff. I'm confusing myself. Unlock the stuff that is glitched by the patch, and then install the patch so you can unlock the thing that's glitched when the game is not patched.
Well, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah.
just don't worry about those trophies, Darrell. It doesn't matter.
And it's only 100%, which I think is why most people haven't done it.
There you go. But I don't know, for whatever reason, this graphic just for Fractured Minds reminded me of that, so I wanted to point it out. The next one I wanted to point out is Kittened. And it's a picture of a bunch of cats crawling over the title of the game. And my daughter is just a huge cat fan. She has a couple cats. I am allergic to them, so I could care less about them. But
are you actually? Because my mother told me that for years, and I was like 20 when she finally admitted that she was lying and she just didn't want cats.
No, so like I've been trying to work into it. Yeah, I am allergic to them. I get really stuffed up, and then I get like my eyes they start to swell a little bit, and they get really irritated. It feels like I have glass in them. It's pretty terrible. But I've got 2 cats here that live in my garage, and I've got one that we have an office cat. So every now and again, I'll catch it sleeping in my office. So I'm constantly exposed to them. So I think eventually I'm just going to kind of get over this whole allergic thing. Like one day I'm just going to be cured just by being.
Or you'll die.
Yeah, well then there's always that. So.
So this was actually Kitten was my big entry for spam of the week, because if you look at the trophy list, like a quarter of the trophy list is just scooping cat poo.
That's a quarter of having a cat.
Yeah, basically.
Heck yeah. So that's I'll be getting those trophies.
You gonna stack it? There's 2 lists.
I the closest I get to stacking are console stacks. So it'd be it's got a PS3, a PS Vita, and a PS4. That's about as far as I go with stacks.
Can I just ask, what was this game called again? Sorry?
Kittened.
KITTEN''D. Kittened.
This game is... So look, we're going to deviate here slightly, listeners. Are you familiar with the term dogging or dogging, Darrell? I'm sure Mindi won't know about this. It's a UK thing. It was in a show I watched recently, like a detective show. Have you come across this before?
Isn't that?
I do know what it means.
Isn't that like something nasty?
It's a sex thing.
Yeah, I was about to say yeah. And
So
yes.
it's where it's a UK thing. So it's where two people, have sex or whatever in a car, so other people can watch them. So it's a voyeur type thing, or whatever. This dogging. But when you said the name, kittens, I'm thinking of the same thing, but now with cats. So it's just
When you
anyway.
do it,
Anyway,
that's when you do it outside of the car.
that's right. That's right. I like it. I like it. Good. Okay, Mindy, what would you like to throw at us?
I'm gonna throw out two games that I want to play that I can't because they're both on VR.
Yes.
Because screw my life. First one is Doctor Who: The Edge of Time, which has 2 stacks but no platinum, which is disappointing.
Ah,
A new mysterious enemy threatens to tear apart the universe, and only you can stop them. Doctor Who: The Edge of Time and lets players embark on an adventure through space and time. Travel the universe, visit alien locations, pilot the TARDIS, and solve the mystery of the controlling force behind the reality virus. Please notice that, reality virus is capitalized and it's VR, you know, swapped around. I wonder if they're going to
Ah,
bring that in there or if it's just a coincidence and I'm reading too much into it.
I didn't realize this is going to be a VR only game, is it, or is it both?
No, it's VR only. I looked. I've
Okay.
answered my own question. I did wonder previously how the drop handled VR exclusive games, and they don't. They
Mm,
don't. They don't. There's no consistency on whether they label them VR required because they and the drop it just
yes.
says PS4 digital. I was like, ooh, maybe I don't have to have VR. And then I looked and
Mm,
I looked at specifically the Steam page for the game because it also just released on Steam, and there's a thing on Steam that says you are required to own a VR device for this game. So I was
ah,
like, wow, way to
okay.
go, the drop.
Yeah.
Like you really should put in here that these are
Mm,
the other one's a little better. This other one, Last Labyrinth. Escape a merciless mansion alongside a girl words cannot reach in an escape the room adventure game that can only be experienced in VR. At least that one is saying you must have a VR for this. Yeah, I'm all about room escapes, so I really would have liked to have played this.
This is a genre that's increasing, though, this room escape, because there was a recent one. Now, the name has eluded me. I know it was on the Asian stores for some time, but I know it is in the West now as well. I don't believe it's a VR room escape game. I know it's only 100%
Yeah, it was.
game.
We
Uh,
talked about it a bit
uh,
on the episode that Eigen
yes,
Eigen was on because then I brought up Tower
that's
of
right.
Beatrice.
Mm, mm. The name eludes me,
It does.
but
Yeah, I
there
can't
we go.
remember what it is either.
Yeah, they're becoming popular. Perfect. And look, listeners, I'm going to throw out Bee Simulator because I was thinking about it. I've played a lot of games, but I have never been a bee. Have either of you played as a bee before?
No, but it gives me flashbacks to SimAnt, so I'm probably gonna play this one.
Yeah, yeah,
And also, it has some punny trophy names, so that is my weakness.
it does. Yeah, yeah. And I have watched a video. Yeah, it looks like it would be one of these games that I know it includes co-op, but it would be more fun in co-op. Although I noticed that if you play 4-player co-op, it looks really crazy the way the screen splits. There's a lot going on, so maybe 2-player split screen would be good. I don't know if it has online co-op as well. It doesn't say in the thing. Hopefully it will do. But that looks interesting. We'll throw that out, and then just because we should because it's another big game. I suppose we've got the Star Wars, the Jedi Fallen Order game coming out. So, if that interests you, go for it. I believe it's all single player game. I hope I'm not putting
I
my
wonder
foot
if it's another
in it.
game that you can cheat with cheat codes and stuff.
Yes. Yes, like that old one. Yeah, I don't know. But look, that'll be interesting. I'm sure there's a ton of people anticipating that. So unless there's any other new releases there, I think we'll move on. I get the feeling, Mindy and Darrell, that we're now at the point, perhaps after this Star Wars game, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, please. There isn't really is there anything else big coming out this year that you're looking for, or have we now sort of reached critical mass? Is this it?
I think that's it that I know of. Star Wars is kind of bringing up the rear. Every now and again, you'll
Mm,
get like a
literally.
like a just like a Just Cause or something like that coming out. Right there around in the December months. I think everything coming out at this point is a Nintendo joint. I think they've got the 'cause they've got like some Pokemon games coming still. I think that's like the next big thing. But as far as PlayStation's concerned,
Mhm.
I think we're done for the season.
You can hear the collective cry of wallets around the world, finally breathing a sigh of relief. It's over.
Well, because there's no Assassin's Creed game this year, right?
No, no.
Correct.
Because I would have bought that. Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been pushed back to probably never.
Mm.
Last of Us 2 got pushed back. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is never going to come out, but it's supposed to come out in like March.
Breakpoint got released but has been pushed back because there was no game. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things like this happening.
There's a game by a studio called Invader Studios called Daymare 1998. It is a very Resident Evil inspired game. It just released on Steam, and they said that the console release was coming this year. They still haven't given a release date. That would be, for me at least, the most that's probably my most anticipated game currently, still to come out this year. But it might get pushed to next year since they just released the Steam version first.
I'll tell you, there is, I lie. There is something I'm looking forward to, because Life is Strange 2 Episode 5 is supposed to come out at the beginning of December, which means I can finally play it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that should hit the release date. All the other episodes have, so I would assume that will. Yeah. I forgot about that. That'll be a fantastic ending to that game. Yeah. I was thinking as I said that, I bet there's listeners there that are just yelling certain games out that we've forgotten about. But I think the AAA wagon perhaps is coming to an end overall. The big AAA.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah. And which is weird because it seems early.
It does, doesn't it?
For the holiday gloat of games to all be out already. And it's mostly because there's no Far Cry this year, there's no Assassin's Creed this year. Is there even a Battlefield this year? Did that just come out really early and I've forgotten already?
There's no Battlefield this year, no.
A whole bunch of those annual games are just not coming out this year.
Yeah. I think they're a 2-year cycle, that one. But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it has a lot of things have been pushed back as well, I think. So the opening of the year is becoming more of a possibility to launch games now in that sort of February, April region as well. So yeah, that's a good. Look, I'm not complaining. There is more than enough, I think. So look, why don't we move to a topic of sorts, listeners? I don't think it's a topic at all, really. Not even sure how you would describe this. So we're going to treat this very, very respectfully, because I have gained a reputation as perhaps someone who likes to shit on games that many, many of the Sony sheep enjoy. I'm thinking, Darrell, here of the Fantastic Horizon. An amazing game, I'm told, yes?
There's a parallel with where you're going with this, too.
I know.
70 people from that team worked on this other game. So that tells me you're gonna love it.
well, look, there's many things to question here. Love is one of them, I feel. But look, no, as I said, it's a very subjective game, and we're not gonna really deal with it because I'm the only one that's played it. But we're gonna deal with perhaps a broader question for this game. So obviously, listeners, what we're referring to is the Kojima, the latest Kojima masterpiece, Death Stranding, which released the other day. So one of the things that I find interesting, and I know that neither of you have played this game. I think, Darrell, you're anticipating it.
Yep.
One of the things that I've read, and I find this comment really interesting, and I know you haven't played it, so I know we're not talking to the game here, but people, and these are people that haven't played the game, but some people that have, or they've played very little, and they're like, this game is something I've never seen before, or this is a totally new experience. I wanted to ask both you and Mindi here, and this is a general question across all games, are you really looking for something you've never seen before, a totally new experience, or do you prefer having a basis that you're familiar with? What position are you in general? Mindi.
God damn it, I'm eating.
Darrell.
Got her. Hey, well, I'll jump in for you. So, I play a lot of these indie games, because I'm always looking for something new and neat. I pointed out that game off the drop just because it looks like something that could be different. I've been anticipating this game in particular because I know it will be absurd and different. And honestly, I went to go pick it up today. I didn't pre-order it. I should have. I actually went to pre-order today, and the GameStop I went to did not have a single copy of it.
Well, that's a good sign.
So, I mean, that is a good sign. But yes, I went and ended up picking up a bunch of stuff on the Switch instead. So I'm going to have to, next time I double back down there, because I still like to get my stuff physical as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna get it eventually. But yeah, I'm always looking for something neat. And then hearing that something is completely new that I've never experienced it before, I'm a little skeptical. I'm like, yeah, sure. But from what I understand, this game is pretty. It has a different take on things that we might not necessarily consider gamey. So I'm interested. I'm very interested.
And Mindy, are you looking for totally new experiences, or are you happy to build on what we already have? What do you think?
It's a case by case thing. My biggest thing is, do I think I will enjoy this? Regardless of if it's new. I mean, I still enjoy the Lego games. The majority of them are the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
The gameplay is not altered, or if it's altered, it's very, very much, except for, Lego Movie 2, which I was just talking about. But, I still have fun with them, so that's fine. Then I'm trying to think of some other series that switches it up more and I still enjoy it, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but that's mostly because we decided on a topic like 10 minutes before we started recording. Um
Which I think is fair for this game, because I don't think we don't want to talk about it too closely. We don't want to spoil it, obviously.
No, of course not. But I
Mm.
think for people who are saying, I've never seen this, I've seen this game jokingly referred to as FedEx Simulator, because mostly
Yes.
because you're like a delivery guy. I think I have to wonder if a lot of the people who say, "Well, we've never seen anything like this," if it's because these are people who just like the Kojima stuff, like the Metal Gear stuff, and it's different to Metal Gear. So maybe they're just like, "Well, we haven't seen this before," but maybe it's actually quite common. I don't know. I haven't played it, so this is all speculation on my part.
Yeah, no, of course. It's more to the greater thing, I think, of how much new do you want? Like how many returning systems do you like in your game? That was sort of driving at, I think, listeners. So I'm just going to give a very brief account of just a couple of ideas, and then we're gonna go into this fantastic quote that we all are familiar with now, and I think many of you are. So I think this is not a game. And I know, I think this is an experience, and I think this is a movie. And I think once you've played it, you'll whether you agree with me or not, you'll definitely see there are elements in
Well,
there.
didn't Metal Gear Solid 4 have like a 45-minute cutscene, something like that?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So I'm not totally surprised if you're saying it's like a movie and that they're just these ridiculously long cutscenes.
Yeah, I think it's gone beyond that. I think the Del Toro influence on here, it's hard to say what his influence is, because he's just referred to as an additional, what are they? Not an additional character, but he's not given co-credits in the opening or things, which I think is interesting. And one thing that I don't understand, like I understand the Kojima fanboy thing, but I don't understand why it's ever necessary for the creator to have their name appear 10 times in the first 30 minutes of the game. I'm well and truly aware of who made the game by this point, and the only thing I can think is maybe no one else wanted to put their name there, so he put his name there. I'm not sure, but that was, and this is what I mean. I think there are probably 10 minutes gameplay in the first 90 minutes of the game, and then there's not much after that either for a while. So it's definitely a different experience in that regard. Now, I'm not going to talk about anything else because there's a lot of weird shit in there, which you'll experience yourself and make your own decisions. But I am going to talk about the mechanic, the general mechanic, and I don't think it spoils it because, as Mindy said, it's a FedEx simulator, if you like, whatever. The main mechanic in this game, from what I've seen in at 6 hours, and I'm sure maybe it opens up. I hope it does, because if this continues, I don't get it. The attraction is it's a balancing walking simulator. So I think that is what people have never seen, Mindy. We do walking sims all the time. You walk
Balancing
Yep.
walking sim?
Go with me here, because this is a game that you definitely have to go with, I can tell you. So you play a walking sim, you're not going to fall over. You just walk around. Yeah, that's the construct that we're used to in walking sims. In this game, because you're carrying things, you can fall. So you're basically all the time balancing as you're walking or running as well, with various controller movements. So I wanted to pose to you: have you played a walking sim?
Wait, so what you're telling me is they took one of the worst types of QTEs and made a whole game out of it?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't. Yes, it doesn't play as a
Because I'm getting flashbacks to Heavy Rain, and where you have to balance on these beams. It never freaking worked, and they made a whole game out of that.
Yes.
Well, yes. It's not QTE, though. It involves using the left and the right trigger, as you can imagine, to counter yourself, left and right, or whatever else. So that's not spoiling it, because you realize that very early on. That's what the game is going to be. So I agree. I've never done that in a game. The fatal flaw of the game is that you can actually push both at the same time, and you cross your arms in front of yourself, and then you have good balance. So it negates itself to a degree, I suppose, if you just can't be bothered anymore. But that aside, and we're not going to go into the story or anything else, listeners, because that's for you to experience. But that is the overall mechanic, and as Darrell said, the whole game seems to be based around that. So is that now knowing that, is that something that interests you as something you've never seen before in a game?
I mean, I'm still interested. I listened to a couple reviewers that I really enjoy podcast about it this week, and they've been very careful on the spoilers as well. Which the thing I'm most intrigued about is the Kojima stuff that he's gonna do. Like the walk-in sim and the balancing or whatever. Like, I'm not, that's not going to stop me from playing one of his games. I want to see where, when you turn him loose, where are we going? Because that's, to me, that's the charm. That's the beauty of technically everything Kojima does is the same and completely different. It is the same in the sense that it is the most convoluted crap you've ever experienced, but it's completely different in the sense that no one else, I'm saying, can produce what Kojima can produce. And I'm very, very intrigued by it. But I'm also interested to see what this he calls it a strand game. And, essentially from what I understand, it's it's walking simulator of the game, or FedEx, simulator of the game. But, it sounds interesting. It sounds neat. It sounds like they took a very basic principle, and things that we do in games, and they really explored it to see how far you can take that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair, and there is a lot of social interaction in this game and online, interconnectivity, if you like, asynchronous multiplayer, but which we're not going to go into at all. And I understand that I think is the crux of the newness in this game, and that's very interesting. So, in the future, when we perhaps do a deep dive on this game, we'll definitely go into that, because I think there's a lot of merit in there. I personally wonder if this may have been better as a film. It's sort of, to me, in the 6 hours I've played, almost the gameplay gets in the way for me. But that is just my perspective. I'm not a big fan of his games in the past. I don't like stealth games, so I would take that with a grain of salt. I understand he's highly respected. It is very different, but we're not here for my opinion. That's irrelevant, I think, in this sort of scheme of thing. But I want to ask you both, and maybe we can talk about this a little. This is a quote, an infamous. I think it'll become infamous over time.
Before you get to that, I have a
Mm.
quick, just something, I just randomly thought of. Do you think that, because you think about Kojima's earlier work, and you think how they're becoming increasingly cinematic, and it kind of makes me wonder if Kojima's starting to be like David Cage, and I know a lot of people are going to take offense to that, and I don't mean it that way. But you look at, like, David Cage's body work, and it seems more and more like he's just interested in making movies. And I'm starting to wonder, at least from what you're describing, if Kojima is kind of like that too. If you think maybe you should just give him a movie and see what he does with it.
Yeah, and I think that's I think outside of games, we had a fantastic intellectual discussion over a couple of wines the other day, listeners, with a few friends, a few music friends, and one of them is a gamer, the others aren't, but we talked about this, and the big thing that I have a problem with is that the budget for games is way higher than the budget for a movie these days. So, and I understand there's a need for that. There's a reason for that, and also the return is potentially higher. But when you're dealing with this huge amount of money, maybe the expectation should be similar to film. Like, a film that's cutting, a new line, if you like, it really has to resonate in some way with an audience, or it's going to be a flop, and a massive flop. Whereas in games, and I think it is to a degree the Horizon effect, although I think over time this game will suffer worse than Horizon, because I don't think there's enough there for a lot of people. I think once the bubble wears off, I think the people that love it will, but I think the people that don't won't be able to pretend they do, or they won't want to. They'll be, they'll avoid it or whatever. And I think that when you're dealing with this amount of money and this amount of people, and admittedly not much time, because it was made, relatively short, perhaps the bar needs to be higher. Do you think? I don't know.
I mean, I think that a guy like Kojima, if he, I agree. I think he does want to do movies. I think if you listen to David Cage talk, those guys, they want to do movies. But I think that at this point in their career, if they wanted to do a movie bad enough, they would just do a movie. I think that it's the blending of the two, the movies and the games, that's what really gets those guys up in the morning. Like Kojima has not been, like, he said that when he first signed with PlayStation, he was like, I'm going to do movies. But Kojima's got a Kojima. He's got a movie his games, and every game he puts out gets more and more. With the exception of Metal Gear Solid 5, I think Metal Gear Solid 5 took a step back, and I think that was more so because of Konami. But I mean, his games, he likes to put some lengthy cutscenes in there, and he really gets very cinematic with it. So they're definitely an experience.
I think for me, what a lot of this comes down to, and like I said, not having played the game, I don't really have an answer to this. But in general, for things like David Cage games and things like this, what it should boil down to is, would we accept this if it were not Kojima, if it were not David Cage? Like I remember when Mighty Number 9 came out, and of course that's a fantastically famous flop now. But for the longest time, you had two camps. You had people who were like, this doesn't look like it's going to work. And then you have a whole bunch of people saying, oh, no, but he made Mega Man. And so it's going to be, and so there's more of a tendency to forgive or make allowances for just on the strength of one's name or past work or reputation. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing to do it, of course. But I do think at some point there's a line, and you have to wonder at what point do you reach the point where you say, well, even for Kojima, this is extreme, or even for David Cage, this is bad, or even, for.
I guess it really depends on if you like that kind of stuff, because for me, I mean, the more cutscenes, the better. I enjoy them. It's rare, very rare that I skip a cutscene. So I guess it's like, if you don't want 4 hours worth of cutscenes, then yeah, there's certain guys, certain names you want to stay away from. But for me, like, let's say if it was a Resident Evil game, and it had 4 hours worth of cutscenes, I'm all in. If it's a Silent Hill or a Evil Within or a Dying Light 2, I mean, I don't know if it's in my ballpark of my interest. I'm down for 4 hours worth of cutscenes or whatever it amounts to be. I mean, if God of War had that much, I think I would enjoy it.
I don't know. See, I'm going to pull you up here, Darrell. Answer me this then. Okay, so we've talked about in the past on this show, and listeners would know about narrative threads in games. We've talked about Assassin's Creed, massive stories. You lose track of the narrative thread. Okay, so one of the challenges of a film and film media is to present a narrative thread that you can follow in 2 to 3 hours. And films, they thrive or they die by whether they can do this. A 40-hour story. Now, this is a 40-hour story with substantial amount of cutscenes, and you've talked there that if Resident Evil had 4 hours of things
that you wouldn't put in one sitting. That's the other thing too, is that the movies, even like 3.5 hour director's cuts for like Lord of the Rings, you're still expected to sit and do it all at once.
Yes, but they have to maintain a narrative thread to keep you in. And Mike, and I don't want to dwell on this game too much, but his past work as well, does the narrative thread get lost because there's just so much? Do you think? Like, are you happy to be taken on a journey that doesn't make sense for huge portions just because there's so much of these cutscenes? You know what I'm sort of driving at here?
Yeah, I get it, and I guess the simple answer, maybe it's not the best answer, but as long as it's interesting. Yeah, sure. I mean, because if you think about like open world games, like in general, like I don't know that I've played an open world game yet that didn't lose the narrative thread. That after 40 hours of anything, where am I? What am I doing? I guess it would really depend on the amount of content you're or what type of content you're actually talking about here. For me, it would be, okay, let's using Resident Evil as an example. If you're talking like it's a 40-hour experience, which those games are never that long, and you're giving me world building, and you're giving me different outbreaks, and you're giving me action sequences and horror setups, blah, blah, like Mindy said, you're not going to do that 40 hours straight. So it would be broken up essentially in different acts, almost like episodes, you would imagine. Like, I mean, like if you look at like a television show, if you look at a game like a television show, like you might have a 13 episode show, you might have a 24 episode show. That could be technically 24 hours worth of content. And each segmented piece would be responsible for their own beginning, middle, and end. In the same way, any good game that has multiple moving parts, like an Assassin's Creed, there's the one overarching narrative, but then each individual person that you do quests for and quest lines with has their own beginning, middle, and end, essentially. So I think if done correctly, yeah, you can do anything for any amount of time as long as it's interesting. And I think it would be acceptable as long as you are meeting the needs of your fan base. But I'll use Resident Evil as an example. Resident Evil 6, that game was one of the longer games in the series and was all over the place. 3 different campaigns, 4 technically once you beat the game. And each story was supposed to tie into the others. And they were so absurd and so off the rails that was an example of doing it wrong. And I think Kojima, in his mind, is doing it right in general with all of his work. But for most of us who experience his games, like Metal Gear Solid 5, like there were so many dozens of hours in between cutscenes that like I didn't know what the freak that game was really about. All I can tell you of Metal Gear Solid 5 is that like there's a you start the game off, you're in a hospital, you see his butt crack out of his little hospital outfit, there's a flying whale in the distance, a flaming flying whale. There's these weird skull-like characters. This chick named Quiet hums while she's sniping for you. Lots of desert. I don't know what that game was about. I don't know what the story was. I think that one was exactly what you're talking about, where it was so much in between the story segments that that narrative thread was lost, buried, what I'm saying, dug up, burnt, and then come to find out the game wasn't even finished because he, So I don't know. I mean, I guess if not done well, yeah, it could be a victim of that, or it could be really good and interesting, like any good, form of or long form of television. I'm saying form a whole bunch. So
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think though that I mean this argument about whether video games are art. So this game, I don't think I think this game typifies that argument. I mean, there's been a shift in paradigms, with these games. Like we as gamers talk about games like you just did in terms of chapters, in terms of, arcs, in terms of progression. But if this game is going to be a work of art, then video games themselves should stand up against the tests that would be used against traditional art forms. And one of those is critical analysis, which, whether that happens in games or not, who really knows, but not critically analyzing them against other games, against the actual, modern artwork medium. So if this truly is something that's never been done before, if this is something new or whatever else, has it, and this is where I'm going to bring in the quote finally, listeners, and then you two can comment, is it redefining a new art form, or has, as someone told me, has this just gone full Kojima off the leash? Is this just a case of artistic, license that has not reined in? And so what I'm referencing here, listeners, is the quote. Where are we? Here we go. Death Stranding is an irredeemable piece of garbage that should serve as a warning to publishers who give developers carte blanche to create art. And so this was from Steve Ivo, is that right? Written by Stephen Wright, his Death Stranding review. So, whatever we think about the game, whether we agree with that or not, do you think, and we're referencing perhaps his past games, do you think that this is a danger, and a David Cage is very much, as you said, Mindy, in this line as well, do you think some of these developers and creatives are getting to the point where maybe they are off the leash? They're forgetting who the general public is that is going to buy these things.
I mean, I think with art in general, whether it's cinema or books or video games, it's always going to be a balance of what the creators want, what makes them personally fulfilled, versus what their audience will accept, I suppose is the word I want here.
Mm.
I can't speak much to Kojima here, but I do know a bit about Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. They did Sherlock, the BBC one. Moffat did a lot of the early seasons, quite a lot of them, of the reboot of Doctor Who. He was a co-producer, I think, in the early days, and then he was like sole producer for a while. And with these guys, it's they generally have good ideas, but whether or not something they're working on like works is a question of who they're surrounding themselves with. And if they're surrounding themselves with a lot of yes men, I think their hubris gets the better of them. Their egos get the better of them, and they turn out something really bad. Like you look at BBC Sherlock, the first 2 seasons were actually really good, and that was when the show was not this massive success, and then it became this massive success, and I think their heads just got inflated, and they got more and more money from the BBC, and probably more creative control. And then you look at especially season 4 of Sherlock, it's awful. It's really bad. Like the last episode, the finale, ostensibly the season finale, it is an entirely different thing. It plays like a Hollywood thriller movie with some Saw built in, which is just it seems so far off the mark. I'm not saying that I think it's wrong to say, but these people should have all these restrictions on them. I think it's about finding this middle ground and really a question of whether or not that is achieved, basically.
I've got an analogy for you, and I don't know if it's really like this, but this is where my head goes. It's like writing music, right? And maybe writing and doing anything creative, but like there's a certain point where like, okay, you know my name based off of this body of work, right? And I'm going to do this body of work to please my fan base for quite a while. Like if it's music, I'm going to travel, I'm going to play these songs, I'm going to continue to here's the singles that everyone wants to hear, blah blah blah. But as an artist, like as a creative mind, you really get like your brain's always moving, you're always working, even if you're repeating these motions for a while. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to kind of stretch your legs. And when you talk about that quote says that this is like should warn you away from giving your creators, you know what I'm saying, freedom. Like this is, I think, just more so a testament of where your mind goes as a creative type. Like, when I said Kojima's gonna Kojima, like that's maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but it's just like but saying you can't Kojima, it's like telling someone in a band, like, no, you can't break out of this, you know what I'm saying, this style that you do, like you ever listen to like an artist who like maybe their first couple albums they put out are just like really speak to you and they're great. And then like 4 albums into it, they change their style. And it's one of those things to where these people get really tired of doing the same thing over and over again, and it's like, I'm sure a guy like Kojima doesn't want to do Metal Gear Solid over and over and over again, like if you look at the way the game's changed and progressed, it's like he's got other influences. He's got other things in his head. Look what he did with Silent Hills. That's not, Metal Gear Solid. And so then here we got Death Stranding. So like, from what I understand, based on opinions that I trust, that this game has more of an emphasis, moment to moment gameplay on the actual controlling of your character and the act of, taking things from point A to point B, rather than a focus on a stealth mechanic, like he focused on balance. And that maybe that seems too simple for what people expected. I don't know, but it seems interesting, and it might be a thing that Kojima is sitting in his office going, I got all these crazy stories I want to tell, but something that intrigues him is, maybe the act of creating balance in a game. There's certain games that they just play better than others, and that means that you have a creative type at the helm who they focus on that, and they they emphasize that to their team. It's like this game has to play a certain way. It's got to feel a certain way. And maybe that's where Kojima's at. He's like, I'm going to tell this crazy story, and it's going to be really weird. But like the thing I really want to focus on is balance. And then that's just an artist being an artist.
See, I like that you brought up music and arts, because I think, this game, it's pushing definitely in that direction. And one of the most interesting things, as you know, listeners, my background is in music, but one of the most interesting things is when we look at the classic art forms, music has always been a reactionary to basically literature is one of the, unsurprisingly, is one of the things that has moved things forward. And if you allow me to draw a bit of a bow here, listeners, I believe that games are not they're not in a contemporary period at all. They're, things like Kojima are pushing the parcel forward, but we're really in a, and perhaps this is too liberal a view for you, perhaps listeners, but we're in a romantic period. I mean, if we look at the other art forms, like in the late 1900s, the late 1800s, I should say, the French poet Stéphane Mallarmé, like that drop there, Mindi, he wrote a book of poetry that was all loose leaf that you threw up in the air, you picked up off the ground, and then you read it in that order. Now that, at the time, that's sort of revolutionary. Yeah. Music didn't break down and didn't, really break down in its full form until, 1910, 1920. And, music, maybe people would argue, didn't break completely until something like Stockhausen's String Quartet, where he put a string quartet in a helicopter, flew them up, and then beamed the concert back down to the hall. And all you can hear is basically some sounds with, rotator blades going through. And my point is that the other art forms have broken themselves to reinvent themselves. They push so hard, but games is definitely not at that point yet. We look at Assassin's Creed like that. These are still pandering to the, to the largest demographic, like all romantic period art forms did to, to the common person or whatever else, which is, this is how things have always gone. Nothing is freestanding. The biggest difference, though, between the classic art forms and games is that most of these people pushing art forms forward were not driven by dollars and financial incentive. None of these people were wealthy. They didn't die wealthy, most of them, or whatever. In fact, listeners, you may not even have heard these names. You should do some reading if you don't, perhaps. But the point is that the point is that games are driven by a financial dollar. Yeah, Kojima can do whatever he wants, but he's not the one putting his money up to do it. And this is a case where Sony have written a blank check, which I think most would agree to do this. And that, I think, is the crux of the question. And that's kind of what I'm going to ask you both to sort of wrap us up. Do you think, in an ideal world, and it is an ideal world because there are only a handful of creators that would ever be given this opportunity, do you think it is a safe move to give a creative in the games sphere a blank check to make their own game without direction or rules? What do you think, Darrell?
I think it is very case specific, not even case by case. Like general rule of thumb, no. I think that there are just certain people, and it's just like this in all forms of entertainment, all forms of art. There are certain people who rise above the rest, and you sit back and say, yeah, this guy right here, I don't know what the freak he's going to do, but it's going to be wild. And I think that a Kojima is a blank check type of creator. I think that Cory Barlog is a blank check type of creator. I think that I think Neil Druckmann is a blank check type of creator because their body of work supports, the fact that you can trust that it's going to be quality, it's going to be interesting. And at the end of the day, you're going to remember that piece of work, whatever it is. I mean, all those names that I mentioned. I mean, if you look at Miyamoto from Nintendo, I mean, I don't really know. There's not a name per se that sticks out in the Microsoft family these days. But I mean, Cliff Bleszinski at one point in time was a name that resonated, that was like doing something that I really thought he would be a blank check guy, but I think that, that would be the exception to the rule right there,
Yeah.
There's just certain creators that, that they put out interesting things and of a certain quality. And I think, but you can't do that with everybody. You couldn't give me a blank check and expect anything out of it, except for, me to indulge myself with that blank check.
That's a good point. What do you think, Mindy? Do you think this blank check approach to push the art form forward is working, or do you think it's just a media grab?
I don't know if blank check is the answer. I don't agree with, well, we'll give you a blank check if you hit all of these points, because that just seems like game design by committee, and that never seems to work
Mm.
out. It's just it's too fake. People catch on to that. They're like, this doesn't feel genuine. But at the same time, and again, I spoke about Gaddis and Moffat and surrounding themselves with yes men, and that that didn't turn out very well critically, or the fan response wasn't good either. It wasn't just the critics who didn't like it. It was their built-in audience who were more likely to give this a pass. Was like, this is awful. I think you're right, Daryl. I think it's a case by case thing. I think there needs to be some sort of accountability, some sort of person who's willing to say, to kind of pull them back a bit and say, well, let's figure this out a little more. I don't have an answer for this. I really don't. I don't think there is an ideal solution for any
Mm.
of this.
And I think that's what I know, listeners. It sounds like I'm potentially shitting on this, but I do like the like most contemporary art. I have fascination in it, but I don't always have a fascination in the product. I have a fascination in the theory behind it and the history and how it got to that point. I always think that's fascinating, and I'm sure Kojima will be looked on in the future as a revolutionary in how he moved the medium forward. But the question is, I think, for me, and again, this is totally personal or whatever else, is that it's 150 hours game. That's what it is. A 40-hour story. Is it moving it far enough forward to warrant my time? And I think that's a personal question that only you can answer, listeners. And as we've talked about today, it'll depend on a lot of factors, whether you like him or not. But at the end of the day, time is the most valuable currency that I have. I'm sure it's the same for you, Mindy and Darrell. We're not getting any younger, and we're all already pretty old, very old for some of us. So is 3 hours enough for me to see, or will it be more, or will I be pushed more? And look, I don't know. We're obviously going to play more. I will finish the story for this, gratingly perhaps at times, but I will
Sure
because I want to see, and I really do hope. That games move in this direction. They're not for everybody. Like art, it's not supposed to be for everybody. But where the middle ground moves, which is for everybody, is pushed forward by people that take these leaps. I'm just not convinced yet that the leaps are big enough in games. But look, it's a start and it's coming along. So I do look forward to talking about this game with both of you in the future when we've all played it. But let's leave the pseudo-intellectualism there, because I'm sure there are some listeners going, what? What? How? No, I don't understand. Turn it off. But if you made it this far, then you only must have made it this far for the spam of the week. And Darrell, we've got to go to you because you are spammed out, I can tell.
Yes, I am. You can look at my profile and see that I'm slowing down and I'm starting to not finish as many spam games. But I did finish Delta Squad. That was the most spam, or that was my most recent spam. And then I did the Vita and PS4 versions of Deep Space Rush. I started Distraint Deluxe Edition, and I actually really like the game. I love the aesthetic. I like the Drag Me to Hell esque story that's going on. I didn't check the trophy guide out immediately once I fired the game up. The art style kind of grabbed me, and I heard you guys talk about it on the show. And when Mindy said it was like Drag Me to Hell, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I started reading the game, started playing through it, and I've already kind of hurt myself on some missable trophies just from not launching the guide first. And so I kind of stopped and I was like, well, I think I might start over and hit the stuff that I missed. But I have purchased, I'm taking a look right now. I've got a spam folder on my PS4. I purchased Just Ignore Them. And then so I've got right now just in the top of my folder, I've got Just Ignore Them, Distraint again, Siggy, A Fart from Melusina, and Back in 1995. Those are the ones that I'm currently quote unquote working on. But to call back to something you just said, time is my most valuable currency. And I don't know, I'm just kind of at a crossroads right now where I think that even the spam games are just encroaching on my on the amount of time that I'm willing to give up. You know, I'm sitting at 180 plats. It's not fantastic, but it's not the bottom of the barrel. And I just like, I'd only have so many hours, and I kind of want to enjoy some things. And 2 hours here and an hour here. I don't know. I'm kind of waning on it a little bit.
Well, Mindi, seeing Darrell has stepped off the spam train, we'll just mark that down for next time, not to ask him. Can you
He's not
see
welcome
anything?
back.
Could you see anything that's coming up here?
Well, I already mentioned Kittened. I think will definitely be a spam game.
Yeah.
It might take a little longer, but I think it's
Hmm.
still spam. More and more I look at this trophy list, it makes me think of the cat lateral damage one. So I wonder how much RNG
Ooh.
there is in this.
What about this classic Snake Adventures? This looks high possibility for spam.
Probably. Any round with 3 stars makes Nick. Yeah, this is probably spam.
Yeah.
Oh wait, maybe not. Complete all the game with 3 stars.
Well, we'll have to wait
Maybe
and
not.
see.
Now you said that that one off the drop was spam. Fractured Minds. You said 20 minutes. Does that really knock out the majority of the trophies, or is that all the trophies? Or
That's all the
That's the
trophies. I
game.
did the
Yeah.
whole thing in 20 minutes.
well, see, I'm not completely out, guys. That one.
and he's back. And he's back. Yeah. I think your problem is that you're disillusioned, you're frustrated, and you're at a crossroads because you don't know how to deal with the invasion of Japanese trophies on those near and dear to you. And I think that, it's not your fault. We cannot help these people. If they choose to go down this path, we can only be there and support them when it all falls over. So
I can't read what he's doing to know how to help him.
that's right. Well, look, sometimes we can't help ourselves in these situations, but I'm all for octopus love, and if that is what's happening over there, by all means, can carry on with it. So, look, I don't know, that seems like plenty, Mindy. I think that's a lot.
This game, one more. This game, Reborn, that has 4
Yes.
stacks.
That looks interesting.
Probably spam.
Think this is a VR game as well. I think I read about this. I think
Is
so.
it?
Yes. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it might be. Yeah. Oh, look at that. A Dead or School.
Have either of you played Miles and Kilo?
No. This is difficult, though.
No, I want to, but I've heard it's not. It seems like it's not actually like super easy.
Welcome back, listeners. Sorry, we just edited that last section out because Mindy had a surprise gamegasm when she realized there was an Artifacts Monday game listed that she didn't know about. So I think we're going to hear plenty about that game in the future, but where were we?
Shut up!
That's great. So where are we up to, Miles?
The one you were calling out was the Scarlet Mysteries. Is that the one you were just talking about, Mindy?
Yeah, I was browsing the list and right before you brought something up, I noticed there was a new Artifacts Monday game. I had no idea it had just come out.
CJ, when you were talking about football game earlier in the episode, you said that one's pretty straightforward with a guide. Does it require multiple save states and reloading and all that stuff?
No, it can all just be played in one go. But I'm thinking in particular, there's one trophy you would definitely not get if you didn't look at the guide. Yeah, I don't think. It just involves, it's not a spoiler, it just involves clicking the mirror, but there's no reason for you to do that in the game. But yeah, no, all once through. Yes.
Gotcha. See, that's another one too. Y'all asked earlier if I stack some of these games, and I'm not a big stacker. And then there's something about having to make multiple save states and reloading chapters. That's why I can't do most VNs. There's something about having to create a save, do some things, reload the save, do some other things. It mentally just taps me out.
Yeah. I sometimes think, I know, Mindy, if you remember, I think it was just Ignore Them. You actually sent me a different video guide, which was actually a little bit easier to follow because, as you said at the time, it didn't require as many save states. It sort of played it in 2 playthroughs. Was that right?
I did. So the main PlayStation centric one is, I think, Bad Drivers, and Bad Drivers does a lot of save and reloading to get you through. Whereas the one that I sent you was done by some guy for Xbox, and I wish I could remember his name, but I can't.
Might have been Achievement Land.
And his method, realizing that the first probably third of the game is the same no matter what. So you play through that in a specific way, make a hard save in the middle of the motel part, and then you play through the back half of the game twice, making different decisions. Which I think honestly saves you a bit of time. It's a little more boring, but it'll save you some time, I think. Because you already know what to do, so you don't really have to follow a guide for that second playthrough. You just have to know what choice you made so you don't make that choice again.
But I totally agree with you, Darrell. Some of the more complex save ones, it's crazy keeping track of it of everything. So look, there's plenty of spam again for you, listeners. I read somewhere that Rat will be slowing down in December. They'll be taking some weeks off from the middle of December. So you get it while you can, because there will be a little bit of a. I think they take a week off or something. Ratamismus. Christmas for the rat.
What I will be interested to see is if the conversation will turn to, well, why aren't they doing it? They used to do stuff and now they don't do stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, as we all know, trophy hunters love to whinge. So too much or too little, both are valid whinging points, I suppose, to take. So look, with that in mind, talking about trophy hunters, let's quickly jump over to the Push2Plat Platinum Club. And we have a few. I saw that the other week, Darrell, you did stack. You got the double plat there for the Rata Game of the Week. So congratulations.
Yeah.
We'll give you a shout out, seeing you joined us today, and
Wow, there you go.
managed to survive.
I had to get this one.
Yeah,
personally. Yeah.
yes. Well, I think you deserve it. So now I'm going to butcher your name again, but you haven't corrected me ever, so I think you're used to this by now, Teresa. And that's I apologize if I have butchered it. So Plat. Now this is interesting, Mindi and Darrell. Very, very interesting. Plat 450 Galgun 2. Which is many people would consider a pervy game, perhaps. I believe Galgun was banned in Australia at one point, the original one. But anyway, that's great. Then Plat 500, Final Fantasy 8. And I put in a lovely different picture because it was blocked or whatever else. But I sent a question saying, did you get 50 plats in one day or had you just been saving them? It turns out she got 60-something plats in one day. So we have a platinum saver
Good Lord.
in the group.
Oh, is there? Well, I know there's a competition on PSNP that they do every year called Platinum Rain, where the idea is to save up and then pop as many platinums as you can in a single day. So you do a lot of build up and then you're loading up however many games and just getting one easy trophy and popping the platinum at the end of it.
That makes sense. Could you imagine Darrell doing anything 60 times in one day?
No.
Well, not at this age, I suppose. Maybe in the early 20s, but now definitely not. I think so. Now, Mindi, you're going to like this one. We have a new member, Gaius Guardian. Gaius, is it Guardian? I believe that'd be a Final Fantasy probably reference. But anyway, I'll butcher that as well. And the longest plat ever. This is for Friday the 13th plat, which you're intimately
nicely
familiar with.
done. Congratulations. I know from experience how annoying that is. And special kudos if you did it legit without boosting.
And this is the game where he could get the other plat now for free, can't he? Or like auto pop. Is that right or not?
Yeah, it's the way it works is you get the other version, whether it's the EU or the NA version, you do one of whatever the trophy requires and it'll pop the trophy. So it'll still take you probably about 2 hours, depending on how quickly you can get together a group to kill Jason and whether or not you come back as Tommy Jarvis, because you've got a 1 in 7 chance of doing that. Because Tommy's the only one who can kill Jason, and there's a trophy for that. But yeah, it's more or less a free platinum, and if you've platinum one version of the game,
you deserve the other one.
Get your trophies, man. You deserve to stack that game.
So we look forward to seeing that picture next week for the other stack. Redbeard Rick, number 92, Mass Effect. No plat pitch because it's PS3. Fantastic. Well done. So that's a big game. I did, for anyone that was querying that I wouldn't, I did manage to platinum the Ryan Racing kart game. Fantastic. 580 Daisty on fire still. Zombieland Double Tap Road Trip. Darrell, have you seen the movie Zombieland, the second movie? I imagine you would have seen the first.
I saw the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Oh. Do you like them?
I mean, I enjoyed the first one. I'm looking forward to the second one. So
yeah, the second is good. I wonder if the game is good.
I'm curious about the game because it actually looks like it might not be that bad. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like a twin stick shooter, and I like
Mm,
some twin stick shooters. So
mm.
I think that'd be pretty interesting. Seems like a good Black Friday sale
Yes,
game.
yes, very much. Yeah, it's only just come out recently. That in the last week or two, that game, I think. So anyway, we will see. Zador VP God of War number 437, and he thanks PS Now. We talked about that last week, Mindy. That sounds like a very good way for you Americans that have the luxury of doing that. Unfortunately, we do not here, but a very good thing to take advantage of.
Well, actually, I realized for me specifically that they actually carry God of War in my local library, which I wasn't expecting. So I'm just gonna
Oh,
get it for free.
even better. And then oh, so yes.
I wanted to touch on that. I'm sorry, CJ. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm so glad Mindy brought it up because I don't feel like enough people take advantage of the fact that your libraries carry PlayStation and Xbox games.
I don't think they do. I totally agree with you because I remembered because I have gotten like some Lego games from the library, but what I failed to really look into is just how many like M-rated games they carry at the library. I think people think, oh, it carries kids stuff, and but no, they have my local branch has several copies of Call of Duty, and of course there's a huge waiting list on that because everyone wants to
Right.
play it, and but I don't, so I don't care. But there are a lot of uh, quote adult games at the library, and please support your libraries. First of all, your taxes are paying for them
I'd say,
anyway.
yeah, you're paying for it. You may as well go and enjoy the fruits of it. I think that's really awesome. Yeah, like we were in the library actually. My kids read a lot. Like they are super nerds. And I can't afford the amount of books that they can read. It is insane, which I'm super thrilled about. So my wife is like, let's just go to the library. And we have this really awesome, very, very new library in our community. And it's and I was in there and I watched some dude, he like had this stack of games. And he probably had 10, 15 games in it. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, I didn't even know they had those. So I walked over there in that area, and our library has a quite an extensive JRPG collection, actually. I was very impressed, but I checked out a few things myself, and I was sitting there thinking, man, these are essentially free platinums waiting to be harvested. Uh, but I just,
I like that
yeah,
image.
I was like,
Yeah.
And in most libraries, if it's like a county library, if you live in a bigger city, a lot of them, do business with each other. But all you have to do is put a hold on it at your branch and say, "I wanna pick up at my branch," and then you don't even have to go to this out of your way library.
right.
You just gotta wait, you know? It took, I think, 2 days to get the Lego game.
So I own the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Platinum game, like Mutants in Manhattan, I think it's called. I own the game, and the trophies are very grindy and it's kind of difficult. And the game is really set up to be a 4-player game, but you have to have 4 people playing online to really enjoy it. And so I went into the library. I was like, "Hey, I want to check out this copy." I was like, "Can I request another copy?" They're like, "Absolutely." So I had them transfer one from a different branch, and then me and my 2 boys, we sat there and linked up on all our PlayStations and played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles together recently. It was very very fun. I was like, "Man, I didn't have to pay $40 a piece for other copies of this game at GameStop." I was like, "This is awesome." And that game's been delisted from the network, so there's no chance of it going on sale, and grabbing,
Mhm.
a couple extra copies of it. So
And that's great because even if you do like a GameStop rental, you still have to have the capital to put down the money for the game. Even if you're gonna get it back in, 5 or 6 days,
Mhm.
you
right,
still have
right.
to have that 50, $60 if it's something new. And, that might be a problem for some people. Whereas the library, it's basically a timing thing. Are you the first person in
Yep.
line to get it? If so, here you go. It's fantastic. Also, there's a lot of good books in the library too. So shout out to reading.
And the last one. How can I forget this? Because I'm halfway through this. Well, half is a liberal term in itself, I think. DSD also trying for, and he enjoyed that, which is good because I don't hear a lot of love for that game. It seems to have gone under the radar. It is, from what I've played as well, it is fantastic. A return to form from 1 and 2 after the interesting incursion that was Trine 3. So, look, I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's enough for today. Is there anything anyone else wants to do, wants to say? Now is the time.
Nope. I think that's been a pretty rad show, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
We need to get you a punch card, like, you know.
No, we can still do that.
The sixth guest appearance, get the seventh one free, something. I don't know.
Oh, I've been paying to be on this show.
I tell you what. No. I think you've racked up enough frequent flyer miles. Next time you're on, you can do the intro. There you go. Look at that. Look, we share. I wanted to do it today, but
oh man, you're gonna have to pop 2 cans at the beginning. I don't know.
Yes, why not? That sounds perfect. So you've already done it. You've thanked yourself, Darrell, before I could thank you. But thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Both Mindi and myself really enjoy it. I appreciate you giving up the time for us.
Absolutely. Anytime you need me.
Yeah. And Mindi, where can we find you?
Yes, Twitter at themindisacity. I do have a coffee page, ko-fi.themindisacity. It's just to bankroll so I can buy games to write walkthroughs for, because currently the only developer that sends me walkthrough codes is Artifacts Mindi.
Excellent. And listeners, if you want to bankroll me to make something creative and amazing, I only accept blank checks. They can be arranged personally just by sending me a message on PSN, preferably in English. Thank you. So until next week, listeners, you know where you can find us. We're on all good podcast providers, yada, yada. Please, if you feel like jumping into the Platinum Club, please do. It's free on the PS4, and we read out the Platinums. If you want to write a little bit about the game, I noticed some people put a few words in as well. We usually read that too. It's lovely for everyone in the group to sort of get a feel for some different games, and for any that Sony managed to get past me. It's also fantastic. And what else do we need? Discord, if you want to join it, it's incredibly relaxed. If you want to come and say hi, please do. I think that's everything.
Twitter?
Oh, Twitter. The Twitter. Yes, sorry. It's a real wheels are falling off, listeners. Twitter is push2plat. Push the number 2plat. We do have an email, push2plat@gmail.com. Next week, I believe Scottish Nub is starting his Final Fantasy 12 journey. I'm going to start mine perhaps at the beginning of December. Prepare yourself, Mindi. A PS2 game on a PS4. 100 hours. We will see. Ooh.
You're going to have a busy December, because I know some games that you have to play for upcoming episodes that you were going to start in December.
I know. So it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exciting all the way around. But look, until we get to that point, listeners, have a wonderful week. Enjoy Death Stranding. Let me know what you think about it. Please let us all know. So until then, have a great week. Thanks, Mindi and Darrell.
Thank you.
Bye.